what does work look like? How do you define work? What are values for a workplace that you don't have to answer all three of those, obviously. Just randomly, let's talk about work a little bit, define it.
Basically, my personal growth is how I feel purpose in my work. But I challenge myself to get more media coverage for my clients or meet my clients' goals. And I think how my superiors at work look at me and how I feel about myself is when I feel like I'm fulfilling my purpose at work.
So when it comes to like this definition of work, I think that the thing I value is kind of freedom to create.
Yeah. Freedom to create.
Yeah, freedom to,
man.
and even to have ownership of what you're creating.
Yeah.
I think that's for me, it's a difference in thought.
I think that's important too. Key decision making, ownership, that whoever is in charge, right, gives you the freedom to create and the ability to have that, to leverage that in your own space, in your own time.
I want to take it like that step deeper of like what, like defining work for me, like what I do now, I don't really consider work. I very much am passionate about it, and there's a lot of work that goes into it for sure. But I think if you like love what you're doing, you won't consider it work. It's more just like you're having fun and doing something impactful.
Does that matter to you guys? Like time is like yours, where life doesn't just happen to you or work doesn't just happen to you, but you get to choose that yourself? Or
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. I would be insane if I had to go in an office. I would not be well. I wouldn't be okay.
Who works in an office? Raise your hand. All right. So yeah, and you two don't, because you've got your own space.
Yeah, I do my office work, I guess, like at work or at home. I don't have like a traditional education. I don't have a college degree, so I have to learn things that people have degrees, you know, like marketing and entrepreneurship and business, like.
To your point, like the degree is meaning less and less.
Yeah.
And that's that transition that we're seeing happening right before our eyes, and it's just recognizing that you don't have to have that mindset anymore, and it's okay to be who you are, to find out what your purpose is and pursue it. I mean, that's ultimately what's going to fulfill you.
Yeah.
And realistically, everybody's just figuring it out. Like, nobody knows what they're doing.
I wish to God I was a millennial, because I feel like the millennial generation has this unique opportunity to pioneer again. So here's a fascinating question. If you were to think about work in terms of paycheck or purpose, your perspective on not just what's more important, but are you, in terms of that conversation, like, would you be willing to take less pay for more purpose behind what you were doing?
So there's like a total shift happening. So we we believe that in order to get paid, we have to do things that we don't want to do, and that and in order to do good in the world, God, you can't make money doing that. Like there's a belief about that, and it's,
You have to be Mother Teresa.
yeah. And it's crazy. Like you can find purpose and love what you do every day, and wake up with excitement and that spark for life, and make an amazing living doing it, and live an abundant, fulfilled, joyful life.
And that's like, for me, the shift is like a shift of defining what success is.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I think my parents, the success is make it through to your 65, retire, make enough to retire, and then live off that, and then pass on whatever's left. I think for me, it's not so much of looking downwind. It's like, how do I do that now? And that's where I'm willing to take a pay cut to do the things and live the life that I want to live, and be a part of that. Whether that's wise long term or not, I don't know.
Yeah, your kids might not get shit. like tough. But you know what they'll get though is they'll get a whole different perspective on what matters and what success is, and that is worth more than money passed down. It really is.
Yeah, because I mean, you spend 60 years working, hating your life, so you can live 15. down in Florida, taking grandkids to Disney World. It's
And
like,
when you're back, and your back is
it's like,
shit,
what is-
and you can't
Yeah,
cough anymore.
exactly. It's like, it doesn't make sense to me, It's
Yeah.
not a holistic perspective.
Yeah.
But, again, different generation.
Yeah.
I was going to mention this earlier when you were talking about college. I dropped out of school, and the last thing like I remember being in this huge lecture hall, and my accounting professor was talking about, you will be a success if you do bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. And I remember being like, wait a second, like, am I getting brainwashed right now? And writing in the corner of my notebook, like, who am I allowing to define my successes and failures?
We do want to make money. We want to survive. Right? We want to be able to eat. But how do you define success?
Setting some sort of like benchmark. I want to do this by this point in my life, or something like that. That's typically how I go about it, and probably how. I mean, things may change, but I'll probably measure up to that or reassess like when I get there and see if I hit it or if I need to adjust, or that sort of thing.
So you're real goal oriented.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's the understanding that we're shifting from just as a whole, from going from a scarcity model to abundance. And it's about being able to share. And the more that you share, the more value you can provide and give to the world.
What does a scarcity model mean?
Scarcity is like zero sum. Like if you make money, that means I make less money. But abundance is like we can all make money together, or we can all share in the wealth together, or
Hey,
whatever.
let's come up with an idea to make a lot of money, guys.
At home, in front of my desk, I have the number of people that exist on the planet. It's like about like 7 billion.
Yeah.
Or yeah, 7.
7.4 something.
Something crazy. So no, it's like, yeah, it's 7.4.
Yeah.
Like almost 7.5. And I see it every day. It's right there, right in front of my workspace, just to remind me that there is enough for everyone.
Yeah.
Like, it's a huge number. Like, the planet is abundant,
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
There's just a lot to go around.
Yeah. So you were talking about authority issues that you have, Darren? No, I'm just playing. No, but just when we were talking about where that comes from, when our perceptions of authority because of experiences in your generation growing, that's what I've read. I don't know, has that had an impact when you look at like the Enrons, when you look at political figures that are like anti something, then you find out they're the ones doing it, or worse, or in terms of the church, global church, seeing that perspective, civil authority. Do you feel like that's true, what's being
Authority
said?
is we have the ability to challenge it now because there is so much awareness.
Yeah.
Because we're so connected, we have the ability to then take that intellect and challenge you because it's the right thing to do. Because if we do not
That makes
continue to
sense.
do that, you're going to always get what you always want.
So it's not the authority issue, it's what the issues with what the authority's doing. It's not
Yes.
necessarily authority.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and we are so much more aware. We know everything.
Yeah.
We know
Yeah, it's
everything
true.
now. So we can make, those decisions for ourselves.
Yeah, for me, like, kind of going to your point, I don't have a problem with authority at all. And I'm actually looking for, leaders or mentors, really, because there's a lot of things that, like I said before, like, it's just trying to figure things out. So there's things that I could learn from people that have been down the road that I'm going or wanting to head down, that I could learn from. So actually seeking that out instead of, like, resisting it. But yeah, like what you said, like, I don't want somebody to tell me what to do. I think, me personally, our generation loves autonomy, being able to have a voice in something, how it gets done. Ultimately taking direction, but having a say instead of someone just enforcing their will or what they think is best in a certain situation, because there's a bunch of different perspectives and ways to look at things.
Direction, not dictation. Not. I don't want a dictator telling me like do this way. Give me the freedom to be able to accomplish that and prove to you that I can do it probably better than what you expected. Yeah, makes sense. How do you feel in terms of the world? Do you feel optimistic or pessimistic in terms of the world getting better? Like, where are you at in that? Or do you think about that?
It's hard to know because and then, or it's hard to decide what it is, if it's going to become better or worse, because if you are watching the news, or if you're on Facebook getting your news, or if you're on the internet, there's so much bad news being shared. Like, and of course there are terrible things going on in our world right now, in our country right now, but there's very little good news being shared compared to the amount of bad news that's being shared, because if it's something terrible that's happening, then that's what's going to make news, versus a good deed that's happening. You'll barely see that. So I want to be optimistic about our future and about the world's future, but there are some things going on that I don't even want to think about the future sometimes, because it's scary for our kids and generations to come.
Yeah.
It's just about perspective, what you choose to focus on, and just don't watch the news.
I'm also thinking about it from just an organizational standpoint too, and how they can make the impact, right? So if we're looking at a global view of the world, organizations are growing exponentially right now, and so is technology. So as long as we leverage that, I think there's massive opportunity to see the world get better, as long as, again, it becomes the right focus and the right priorities.
Yeah. We've got generations that are older than you. We have a Generation Z, 18 years and younger, that are coming up after you. I'll give you some time to think before you answer. When you come up with it, you can be the first to talk. What do you want the world to remember about you and your generation?
Tying in like both sides, so both aspects or both sides of the generational gaps. I'd say that we're all looking for the same things. That we are our targets are for the same thing. So whether you came from a generation ahead of us, you kind of left us or impressed this aspect into us that we can achieve some of those things, and for the generation that's coming behind us, that we're trying to set a path for you to also achieve the things that we want to achieve as well. And ultimately, I think I personally want to be remembered for leaving something of positivity behind, whatever that means. It can be big or small, but I want my time here, and I think all of us want our time here to have made a step forward or jump forward towards something more positive, or something that had a positive impact to the next generation, because our time here is just a small blip in the grand scheme of everything. And so it's important to think about like the macro level of things, and know that it's not just us in this certain period of time, that there's other people that have been down where we're going, and people coming behind us. So.
I want Generation Z, so the generation coming up, to feel empowered in what they're going to do, what their career might be or their job might be. And if they don't know what they want to do right away at 18 years old, I want them to feel okay about that and not too much pressure. And then the next generation above us, I want us to talk about.
You don't have to.
I don't like how they generalize every single millennial, because I actually talked to Ryan before we had this meeting, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be a good person to talk with everyone about, because how people describe millennials, I am not a millennial. I am not lazy. I am
that interesting?
absolutely, I'm so opposite of that. And then Ryan was like, well, obviously there are other people like you, so they've like ingrained me to believe that millennials, my generation, are these types of people, and I don't believe that, so I don't know how I feel about them.
I would say that we are just paving the way for the coming generation to not have to decide between paycheck or purpose. And you're welcome. And then to the generation above us, like, I'm sorry that it's uncomfortable for you to see that you don't have to slave your life away and hate what you're doing in order to live, and it's uncomfortable, and it's easy to just write this generation off because it's different from how they did things, but we're paving the way for a new way of living on this earth, so it's awesome.
So I think for the generation coming up, I think it's important that they see that there's a growth mindset, and you don't have to get stuck in this box. If you see yourself in the box, you have the ability to step out of that box and continue to challenge yourself, challenge authority, and take advantage of all of the technology and information that you have at your fingertips. There is power in that. You can make an impact with that. For the generation that we won't speak of or name of, I think it's more about, again, just learning from them, right? And it's understanding how they did things and refining it now to make it work for today's environment and world, and being okay with that.
Yeah.
I think that to both generations, I want them to know the quote that says, "I'm the master of the fate of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul." Like both, I want my life to like shine that, because to the older generation, so many of those people told me that I had to do my life a certain way in order to get the things that I want, and I have something to prove, but that's not true.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show you by living my life to the fullest. And to the younger generation, I really hope that my life shows them that they can do whatever they want. For real, for real. Whatever they want to do. Sky's the limit.
Yeah. Awesome.
For the generations before, I would ask, like, what's your dream? Not what was your dream, but what is your dream now? And I think our culture doesn't value a lot of our previous generation, because we worship youth, you know, and so once you get past a certain age, and it's like, all right, we're done with you, you know, like we don't really need you anymore. But I think we desperately need mentors that you were talking about, you know, and people who are like helping guide our path, and like resources, and so like going to people and, you know, that generation, what is your dream now? Like, what does that look like? What is the future? You know, you may be at a point where you're now more looking back than looking forward, but you're still moving forward, so why not look forward? You know. Anyway, so that's what I'd say to the generations before. And the generations after, something similar to what you guys were saying, seek to live beyond the box. Like, look at life in a way that is not, like, you can create your own path.
Awesome. So that's breakfast with millennials. I just want to thank you guys for just being honest and candid and sharing like your heart, and hopefully this isn't the last time. I think it would be really cool to have these times in the future, and I'm sure there'll be major events coming up in the world that we can share and discuss. My biggest thing every day is starting the day by saying, what good am I going to do today? And then ending the day by saying, what good did I do? And keeping that kind of perspective on what you guys have shared today in terms of authority, and you know, being able to hear it from you guys is a whole different perspective on what your generation is about than what's been said. And that's shifting, and I think I just, as a generation right before your generation, want to say thank you, because the willingness to just step out and go for things inspires me. It inspires me to be able to do what I do, and to just go for life and just really live in the fullness of what I know I'm supposed to do and what I'm called to do. And I learned that from your generation. I didn't learn that from my generation. So thank you for that. And let's go make the world better. Because I think at the end of the day, we believe we can, and we will. And regardless of who's in political power, who's in authority, who's over this company, that company, at the end of the day, like, the power is with us. Because we're the majority, and you are the majority. You make up the majority of the workforce. You make up the majority by 2020 on the earth. Like, you're the largest generation on earth right now, which is crazy. So just think, you are the majority. And so because of that, you can leverage that to make the world better. So I'm joining with you on that track, and hopefully we can change the world. Hopefully we can change the world together, you know? So thank you guys.
Thank you.
That's breakfast. Yeah. Woohoo! Done.